LAT Property Show. Come, let us share our daily experiences. Welcome to our channel. Today we are going to discuss a crucial aspect of estate planning, property inheritance. Whether you are an owner or a beneficiary, or you're looking to understanding the process, today this video is for you. We'll get into it. What is property inheritance? I think people get to have a lot of questions that surround this subject. The reason I brought this topic, I will share a story. We're currently having a property that we have in the area of Joburg, where I would say it's being owned on by the third generation, that is the great grandchildren. What happened on these properties, we got to find out when they asked us to sell the property. We got in touch with the people who we had signed a mandate with. In the process of getting an OTP to be signed, we then realized that there is no right person or the right candidate who could sign on the offer to purchase. What we then got to do is we got to find out so who's going to sign, and trying to reach all the several people that we had as the contact points. We then got to find out that it's a long story. Cutting the long story short, it happened that the great grandfather passed the property on a will to the firstborn child. When it was passed to the firstborn child, it was just on a will with the lawyers or the attorneys. Um, Years later, the child died, passed on as well. So without a will. Then it was passed on to his own kids. Um, his own kids, I'm talking of people who were born in the 40s and the 50s. So his own kids then now, um, then after are the grandchildren that we are dealing with at the moment. Reaching out to them to find out who is the power of attorney on signing those documents, they said they can't find the person who had the first will from the first grandfather passed on. There are no records. There is no documents to say the first owner, the original owner, had a will that was passed on to the son who then passed on to his own kids, the own kids who's now the great grandchildren. So we're sitting in a scenario where there is a property that's sitting and there is no rightful owner to this. The first documents of the will are destroyed or they are lost. Trying to get a solution on this property, if I get a chance or time, I will do a separate video just showing you the condition of this property. To let you know, there is the part that's heartbreaking. The reason I decided to touch the subject of inheritance, the heartbreaking part is when you look at this property, it's now getting destroyed because there is no one responsible for it. The grandchildren, they try, but not that much. The property agent has tried to reach out several times. We had people who stayed there for 2 years or so. They were paying their rent properly. Later down the line, they decided to not. The arrears reached close to 30,000 rand. They were they opened a case with the rental tribunal to see we cannot be chased out. We could not. We tried to turn off electricity, kind of illegal, but in the process, we were trying to get the tenants out of the property, reaching out to the owners, the great grandchildren, to find solutions in getting this property going or being well maintained. It was just a pain. No one is really available to give instructions or a direction to say There is the money allocated on this many allocate on fixes, this many allocate on levies, to the point that this apartment is owing a lot of levies to the board corporate, and just the condition that it is in. I'll record a video very soon on this property. It was a penthouse, though it's in the area of Hillbrook area in Johannesburg. But I would understand at that time when this property was purchased, it costed a lot. It costed a fortune to that person, with the hope that this is an investment for my kids, for my grandchildren. We put a lot of effort, a lot of money as parents or as guardians in securing investment for our kids. So I'm sure if it's just about you, probably you just go get a bachelor for yourself and stack it until you die. But we have offsprings that we look after, and we're like, if something happens to me today, what is it that I'm leaving behind for this, for my children? But do our children really care? I'm just posing a question. Do we train them enough to understand that we've sacrificed our all in investing in a property? You're getting paid 15K, 20K, and you're paying a bond every month, 10,000 rand for 20 to 30 years as an investment. Life happens, you leave the earth. Somebody needs to take over, especially if it's investments that are in sectional title. Levies needs to be paid every month. There's no break, there's no breather there. You need to continue paying your levies so that the building operates, continue to operate, and it stays clean. You've got power, you've got water. But then in the process, we leave this inheritance, we leave this investment that we spend the rest of our life investing in. Our children, our grandchildren, our great grandchildren, do they value it the way we value it ourselves? Do we do we teach them at a tender age what it is about money, investment, savings, just for them to understand that it did not come on a silver platter? So it's a story that I'm sharing. The property is sitting there. We got a call from the caretaker. Since we chased those tenants away, we were notified that there's some maggots coming out of the door. They were asking us to attend to it. But what do we do without instruction from the landlord? What would you do if it was yourself? If there are legal advisors and experts watching this show, how would you assist in such a scenario? So I'll move on just to touch on property inheritance itself besides the story. So, what is property inheritance? I had posed the question. This refers to the transfer of ownership of a property from one person to another, usually um, after the original owner's passing. This can include immovable property. So, I know we're touching on property that is immovable, but that will be houses, apartments, flats. We can also talk about land, commercial properties, that is shops, malls, um, even land that hasn't been utilized, just a virgin land. Um, Inheritance also include houses, I mean cars and furniture, but we're touching specifically on houses, immovable property. Um, those are the several types of property inheritance. I'll break it down for you, but let's just take a break. Welcome back. So we're just discussing the different types of property inheritance. So for it to become inherited, there is different types of how it was left or how it needs to be carried on. So there is properties that are left through a will, which makes life easier for everybody else. But as I've mentioned, on this property that I was referring to, there was a will, but then people take their time to resolve this thing, especially when it comes to paperwork, documentation, and getting things resolved and getting them out of the way immediately or as soon as possible. So if people don't get to attend to these matters, time moves, people leave the earth, people get sick, they can even get mentally disturbed, and then no longer in a position or to sign any documentation because they're just not in the right state. Of course, there are ways to get that resolved, getting power of attorneys and medical reports to prove that this person cannot, but this needs to be done. We can always discuss that on the next episode, on a different episode. Then, so that's property left on a will. Easy. Family sit down, a lawyer, whoever was assigned with that will come and read the will. The inheritance is distributed to the rightful people. And then there's assets that are left that there is no will. So with the court of law, depending with which country you are, that's automatically then inherited by your immediate family. That is your wife, your children, your brothers, your sisters, or if it's your parents. They automatically inherit from from your um, from the inheritance that you have left behind. The third one is just distribution, transferring of ownership of the property to the beneficiary according to the wills or the laws of law. So, we would love to have an expert on this show to to give advice to people, especially if you've started investing in real estate, you've started investing in property. It's important, it's vital that we get to have a will. You don't know what happens in the next second, you don't know what happens tomorrow. There's wars in Congo, there's floods, there was fire in Chicago, there's all those things. So let's always be prepared for the unfortunate that happens in our everyday lives. We move so property inheritance can be complex and emotional. There's some few challenges that can be faced. There is usually it's communication between families or the immediate people who are involved in that. So you also need people of law to help you resolve such conflicts. And if in by any case there's properties or the immovable property that was left was in debt, or there's some arrears, there's outstanding bills on it, or it's still on a bond, some levies due, and all those things, you need experts to help you resolve such situations. There's also some tax implications on it, so you'd also need a tax professional to help you in minimizing tax liabilities on such cases. Just for me to wrap up on this show, we'll touch more on this. I'll give you scenarios on our next episode where we'll touch a real scenario and would how people would suggest that it can get resolved in this way, or what do the experts of the law say how this can be resolved. Property inheritance is a critical aspect of real estate. Understanding the process and the potential challenges helps you to have a smooth transfer of ownership. If you have any questions, queries, or suggestions, please do comment, like, and subscribe to our channel. We will bring you more. See you on the next episode.